What is up, everybody? We are here in Mobile, Alabama to recap what I saw from day 2 of the Senior Bowl. Make sure you check out the day 1 reactions. We also talked a little bit about the Drew Brees hiring in Denver. Not going to be talking about Tom Brady here, and maybe not for a while. Like I said in a YouTube short here, I ain't buying it. I don't think he's actually retired. It was a little bit too casual for my liking. But we're here to talk about some not some college football, soon to be NFL football from some college prospects. Again, out here in Mobile, Alabama, recording this from my hotel room. Thank you for dealing with me through some technical difficulties. I know the week 1 show got up a little bit later than we would have anticipated, and the audio, or rather the video, cut out in the middle of that episode. Just dealing with some of that stuff. The upload speed at this hotel was 0.1 megabytes per second. I didn't even know it went that low. I get like 40 at home, which I guess is pretty good. I've learned that the hard way, but without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about what I saw today, and do please hit that like button as well if you enjoy, and make sure you check out the Fully Inflated Football Show if you enjoy my analysis. You can check out the podcast there, link in the description below. Let's go in the same order that we did yesterday, going through position by position. We're going to start with the wide receivers, and I think the receivers had a little bit of a better day today than they did yesterday as a whole. Not that they were necessarily bad on day 1, but I did think the corners really held their own on the first day, and the receivers kind of punched back this week a little bit more, or today a little bit more. And the biggest standout so far, really through 2 days, he's now had 2 fantastic days, but even better today, Jayden Reed out of Michigan State was certainly on my watch list coming in to this week, but he's blown it out of the water. Like, I don't know where the hype is going to stop with him, but knew he was a good athlete coming out of Michigan State, was able to run short routes and provide some juice after the catch. But what has really been on full display is not just those things, because he's doing those things, but it's been the verticality that he's bringing to the game in 3 phases. Number 1, the speed. He has currently recorded the fastest GPS tracking time down here at the Senior Bowl, which shout out to the Senior Bowl for getting that out there. They put it up on the big board, kind of all those GPS metrics and stuff, which is something that is typically kind of foreign and unavailable to the media. So cool to have that. Jayden Reed topping over 20 miles per hour. Again, the fastest out of any player so far down here in Mobile. So you know he's got that speed, that athletic juice, with the quickness as well. But the route running prowess has also been on full display. He's shown beautiful little hezzy steps, which was yesterday. We talked about that, burning a guy deep. And just in general, his route running on all 3 levels has been fantastic. But today, on full display, to add on to that, is the ability to track a deep ball and come down with tough catches near the sideline and with DBs draped all over him. Just great concentration and hands at the catch point. So we're not talking about a guy that has shown that he can win on all 3 levels. He has the speed to get vertical. Where does the hype stop with Jayden Reed? Is this a guy that's going to start to get into maybe that top 50 players in this draft conversation? I think he so far has been the biggest winner out of any player down here at the Senior Bowl so far, to the point that I wouldn't be surprised if he shuts it down for practice tomorrow, because you can't really play a whole lot better than he's played. I've been blown away with Sparty there, Jayden Reed, the receiver from Michigan State. But it's not just him playing well. On that national team, you've got Michael Wilson here for the second episode, or the second part of this weekly, the series for the week here. Sorry, the fridge in my hotel room is just going ballistic right now. I don't know if that's coming through on the microphone or not. Great timing. But Michael Wilson's been fantastic. We talked about him yesterday. Didn't really stand out from what I watched from him before the Senior Bowl, and wasn't really a guy I'm not going to say I wasn't looking forward to watching him, but he certainly wasn't on like my big watch list or anything. I thought he was just a guy. But no, he looks like a guy that's going to be a starter in the NFL. Full-sized guy, 6'2", 200 pounds, and he's just kind of been checking boxes throughout the week. Right away, on the first day, it was okay. He's got a clean release package in the press release drills. He's winning with short routes on slants. Then it was more intermediate stuff, hitch routes, the kind of fluid hips to stop on a dime and turn around quickly on those kind of intermediate routes, the in-breakers. And then today you see him with the second fastest GPS tracking time. So he's got a little bit of sneaky speed in there. And he showed it getting vertical today. Really nice deep ball, contested catch. Not even really truly contested. The DB was there, but he created separation at the top of his route, and he did a really good job just kind of running a deep ball from the seam where he hit kind of the top of his route, and he looked back, and he saw that the ball was, he calculated the trajectory, and real quick, he just put his head down, and he hit a second level with his route, which is huge for a guy with a deep threat to compete as a deep threat in the NFL. So Michael Wilson, just all three levels, a full-size guy, someone that, if we're coming up with comparisons just on the fly here, maybe like a Zay Jones. Just, I don't know if he's ever going to be a superstar, but similar build, similar athletic tools, I think, and a guy that can just do a little bit of everything for you, just as a guy like Zay Jones has done in Jacksonville. So that's certainly a player that's worth a late second and early third round pick. Is that as high as the Michael Wilson hype goes? I don't know. I don't know if his tape warrants that, but certainly a guy that's making himself a lot of money this week. So those are some two major risers for sure, but some other receivers standing out today as well. Andre Iosivas, I think I learned that's how you say that. It's Iosivas, but coming out of Princeton, a guy that's originally from Hawaii, interesting background there, but really big, strong, athletic guy. I don't think he's, a complete freak. We'll see what his testing numbers end up coming in, but he definitely checks the athletic boxes at his size to be like, okay, this guy can be a good starter in the NFL. Like, that is not going to be something that holds him back. And he's been running good routes. He's looked pretty good in the release drills. And today, I think the best rep of his week was against the Miami corner, Tyreek Stevenson, I believe is his name. I struggle to remember that, but he's probably the best corner down here for the Senior Bowl. And Iosivas was, I'm not going to say he lost the rep, but tight coverage. And the ball was coming over the shoulder, tight contact, and he tracks it in. Just a beautiful catch. Good to see a guy with that size using his size and putting it to its best advantage. So I'm definitely intrigued by him. I hope we see him again tomorrow and he can improve his stock, especially for a guy like Princeton. It's great to see him coming out against this level of competition to show that athleticism is there and that he can win against these guys, right? So he's making himself some money this week. And then Nathaniel Tank Dell, he's been so fun to watch. And I said this yesterday, but you knew he was going to be a guy that was set up to win in the Senior Bowl drills. There's a lot of space where he can just kind of operate, and as a guy who's 5'9", 170 pounds with really nice route running, we've seen guys like this in Senior Bowls past really stand out and dominate, and he is doing that. Just so consistent. He had a route today, I can't remember who was covering him, but I think it was the best route that we saw, where he's from the seam, faking the in, to the point where he breaks the guy's ankles and just whips back on the corner route. So he sells the in route and then ends up on the corner and completely shook and lost the DB. Unfortunately, the quarterback overthrew him, which, by the way, the quarterbacks here look terrible. But I think you just know what you're getting in Tank Dell. He's a really good return man. He has just machine gun feet as far as his ability to run routes. He's even been able to beat press. And he's been solid as far as his hands are concerned. I think that was a concern with him coming out. I think he's got 21 drops over the last 2 years, if my memory serves me correct, that it was him with those issues. But he's been just so consistent. I really think you're getting Isaiah McKenzie in this player, which I said yesterday. I think I misspoke and said Elijah McKenzie. But Isaiah McKenzie for Buffalo, you get that guy who can start from the slot and separate and be that guy there, but also be a return man and a gadget player. Someone on Twitter was asking me, is he Marquise Brown? And I don't think he has that kind of speed. I could be wrong, But Marquise Brown, again, has like maybe sub 4.3 speed. I don't see that in Nathaniel Dell, and I think he's a little bit shorter as well, potentially. But either way, he has impressed and absolutely looks the part. Then Jonathan Mingo, again, I think he's just been, to reuse that term, he's looked the part. Comes out of the SEC, out of Ole Miss, and he's been kind of winning on all three levels, especially in the intermediate to deep. I can't say I've seen him destroy guys on slants or whip routes or anything super agility-based, so to speak. But as far as his length, his ability to win tough balls, the physicality at the catch point, he's got that kind of shuttle push-off if he's running either like a hitch or a deep cross where at the top of his break he'll throw that shoulder, which is, these big guys, if you can do that consistently without drawing a penalty, that's a huge plus. He gets deep for a vertical ball today, comes down with a nice catch in the end zone. So I think he's showing that he's going to be a legit, like, draftable prospect. I don't, not all these guys are going to end up getting drafted, but I think Mingo, the expectations were not too high for him, and I think he's exceeded them slightly. So I wanted to talk about him just standing out and having a good week. And then a couple other guys, a lot of people have been asking me about the two Treys, Trey Tucker and Trey Palmer. I think they've been fine. I wanted to at least mention them because so many people have asked me about them. They haven't had like crazy standout moments for me, but I haven't been like, oh, that was ugly or that was bad. Like, they've both definitely got wins. Oftentimes I'm checking my notes, like, which one was that? Because I think both these guys are in like the 5'10", 5'11", 190 range, just kind of like good route runners, good solid receivers. I see them both probably, day 3 guys that can compete for a starting job. So I just wanted to mention those guys. And then I want to celebrate Jalen Wayne. He had a moment today, a really nice touchdown catch in the back corner of the end zone. So he's from the University of Southern Alabama. Was definitely a surprise invite when he got the invite out here, but it was, kind of that like home field courtesy to him. And I said yesterday that he just doesn't look like he belongs out there, like he isn't on the same level as a lot of these DBs that he's got to go against. And it was a lot of the same today, but he did have one spectacular catch and right in front of a bunch of Southern Alabama fans, got him going. One of the louder, more exciting moments down here in Mobile. Good to see the guy making plays in his home stadium. It was just a fun moment. I'm not going to say it helped his stock or anything, but definitely good for him because he had a pretty rough stretch up until then. As far as receivers that were bad today or have been bad, not a ton. Unfortunately, Puka Nacua shut it down. I was really excited to continue to see him because he's impressed me. I don't know if he's injured or his agent said shut it down because he did have a good day yesterday. I don't think he was that good that he could just shut it down, but maybe he'll be back out there tomorrow. I was a little bit bummed about that. And then two guys that I don't think they are showing that they're worthy of the hype. And it continues with Rashee Rice out of SMU. And again, this is all kind of about expectations. He's one of the highest rated receivers out here, if not the highest, actually. I think he might be. Just kind of off the top of my head right now, I'm thinking about it. Like, I think I have the consensus board up right here. He is, yes, currently, based on the consensus board, the highest rated receiver out here. And I just don't see that. I think he kind of blends in with a lot of these guys. I see some wins there. He's bigger. He's physical. I think his long speed is solid. He's got consistent hands. And that's all good. But I've talked about his issues getting off press. I'm really concerned about that. And he's been covered in one-on-ones. He was not as good on one-on-ones today as he was yesterday even. So I continue to just really not understand it with Rashee Rice. I see him as more of like a day 3 guy than a mid-second round pick where they've got him right now. So I will just continue to echo that. He had 3 one-on-one reps today, lost 2 out of the 3. Now, one thing he does really well, and I had this in his scouting notes, good to see him reaffirming this, here at the Senior Bowl is he's really good on comebacks and anything working back to the quarterback. He might have like a basketball background or something because he's really good at distancing himself as he works back to the quarterback and using his bigger frame to box out DBs. So in the one-on-ones, the one win he did have was a really nice comeback where even at the top of his route, he showed some nice stop on a dime ability. So I don't think it's all bad with Rashee Rice. I don't want to just continuously dunk on the guy. But when you look at the receivers that are out here, I just don't see him as the top dog. Far from it. Like I compare him to like Andre Iashevis, it's like I think Iashevis is probably a better player, or Iashevis, similar size, but he seems to be a better route runner, and yeah. So I don't know. I still just don't continue to not completely get the hype on Rashee Rice. And then the other guy is the Iowa State receiver Xavier Hutchinson, and I don't have a ton to say about this, but he's another guy that was he's the third highest receiver by the consensus rankings coming into this. Someone that's projected to go in the third round at this moment. And I don't know. I don't think he's really stood out. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but when you are pushed up the boards a little bit, I would want to see him really flash something, and he just hasn't to me. I think he's made some plays. He's had some other reps where I'm like, all right, whatever, but like I don't think he's got the most polished route running. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. To me, he looks more like a day 3 player, like a late day 3 player than a third round pick. But let's move on to the defensive. Oh, wait, I have one more wide receiver here who is actually playing legitimately bad, and that is Elijah Higgins out of Stanford. Just kind of a classic example of a bigger-bodied receiver. He is the biggest frame out of anybody out here. I think he's 6'3", 220, and he just is not playing up to that size. In the team drill, he is running a hitch route. He turns around, and the ball is sure a little bit behind him, but the ball hits his hands, and he doesn't secure the catch right away, and he actually lets his college teammate, Kyle Blue Kelly, pluck it out of his hands and intercepted it. And it's like, well, if you're going to be a big-bodied guy and you're not going to use that, that's going to seriously hurt your stock. Now, that's to stack on top of the fact that he's been one of the worst separators in one-on-ones over the week, doesn't show great route running. Supposedly this guy is like a gym rat and he's going to test really well, but he's not really stacking corners or showing a whole lot of speed. So I'm really worried about him, and I don't know exactly where his like draft stock was coming into this, but honestly, I don't know if we're talking about a draftable player in Elijah Higgins out of Stanford. He did redeem that ball that got intercepted by Kyle Blue Kelly. In the next team drill, he did redeem himself with a tough catch over the middle. So it's in there, the size, the physicality. It's just a matter of how consistently can he tap into that. So let's talk about these defensive backs a little bit. And I know I said the receivers looked good, but there was definitely some moments where the corners got theirs as well. It's been a very good back and forth matchup between this group. And of the Senior Bowls I've been at, this feels like a deeper class of corners, or maybe the receivers just aren't as good overall. But usually these corners are just, they're set up to fail, and you're just seeing these guys get worked left and right. They're really hanging in there. And I think really that whole national group, for the most part, has, for the second day in a row, I think they're just very solid NFL-level corners. Maybe none of these guys on the national team there are like first-round picks, maybe even second-round picks, but they all seem like high-end backups right away. And really the four players I would highlight there from that national team would be Kyle Blue Kelly, Jacorian Bennett, Mekhi Blackman out of USC, Bennett out of Maryland, Riley Moss out of Iowa, and then to get a fifth name who played really well today was Jartavius Murray. So these are all Power 5 DBs. They're all good-sized guys. I think they're all between 5'11 and 6'1", just kind of NFL builds. They all have pretty good press technique. They've been riding guys' hip pockets. They all seem to have pretty solid speed. And I don't know if any of these guys have really separated themselves. But again, compared to Senior Bowls past, where I've seen these guys just getting worked, rep and rep again in the one-on-ones that are set up for the wide receiver to win, all these guys have had moments where I'm like, ooh, nice play. That looked good. And they all just kind of looked the part of solid NFL players. Now, a couple standouts here. I do want to revisit Kyle Blue Kelly, who had an excellent couple of plays today. he actually probably had some of the uglier losses in the one-on-ones. And I think man-to-man, he might be raising some questions about, is he going to be a high-end man-to-man corner? Like, I don't think he's Paulson Adebo coming out of Stanford a couple of years, who was really athletic and projected really well as a man-to-man corner. I think he maybe is a step behind that, athletically speaking. But now for the second day in a row, once they've gotten to those team drills, he has totally stood out with his zone IQ. Obviously a smart guy coming out of Stanford, but a couple times today. Of course, he had that interception against his teammate that we talked about, but he had another one later in the day where he's playing a flat zone in cover 2, and he intercepted a ball thrown to the seam. And that's a ways to go for a flat defender, totally reading the quarterback's eyes, and made a nice break on it. Unfortunately, he didn't secure the interception, but it easily could have been intercepted. And if my memory serves me well, I believe he had, if not an interception, another really nice break on a ball from a similar zone assignment on day one. So someone that I'm really excited to dive further into his tape and watch his zone reps, because I think you're seeing a guy that really understands the risk assessment of the position there in zone coverage. And then Tyreek Stevenson just continues to steal the show. That's the second day in a row the Miami corner just balling out. And he was in the first round of, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, really piqued a lot of interest that he snuck in there. And I think that was a little bit of DJ saying before the Senior Bowl here, like, hey, I don't know if he'll actually go first round, but let's keep an eye on this guy because he's probably the best corner out of anybody at the Senior Bowl here. And, sneaky good little move there by Daniel Jeremiah because he's been balling out. And just really from start to finish, he's been riding receivers' hip pockets. He's a physical guy. He's got great press technique. He's fluid in his hips. He moves really well. I don't know if his long speed is, spectacular. Like, if something's going to keep him out of the first round, it's either going to be something from his college tape that I haven't seen yet or the long speed. But in general, just a very sound player. He's looked good in zone coverage as well in the team drills. So just a balanced guy that could probably be a day one starter in this league just based on how he's playing today. The other guy I want to talk about is actually not a corner, and that is Sidney Brown, the safety out of Illinois. And he was out there guarding receivers in the one-on-ones today. And he was also, I think, the fastest or the second fastest defensive back out there for the GPS tracking. So, had some good reps one-on-one, and definitely catching my attention as a guy that could be a pretty, sneaky good athlete there at the safety position. Sidney Brown out of Illinois. Again, safeties, linebackers, running backs, not really on my radar too much while we're down here. You can only direct your attention to so much, and the wide receiver corner one-on-ones, the O-line, D-line one-on-ones, that's when you're really paying attention. So really only, team like 11 on 11 is when you're going to get a chance to see linebackers and running backs and safeties, and it's just hard to have takeaways there. But Sidney Brown showed up today, caught my eye. And then, I don't really have any bad for the corners. I think all things considered, they've held up well as a group. Really all these guys. There's, I think everyone I've mentioned stands out a little bit more as playing particularly well. But no one, I think, has had a bad enough week to, call them out for it. So I'll just go ahead and say that. Let's talk a little bit more about the trenches now. And we're going to start with the edge group. And this is a group that I think has been a little bit disappointing, to be honest, there on the edge of the D-line. One guy that did stand out today, though, is Will McDonald out of Iowa State. Was definitely on my watch list coming in because I think he's maybe behind Will Anderson and some of these other top guys potentially. I think he's one of the more bendy, quick, high get-off, just high-end athletes at this position. And was excited to see how that was going to show up at the Senior Bowl. And today and yesterday really got to go against Darnell Wright, the right tackle from Tennessee, who is a mauler. I like Darnell Wright. I think his feet are pretty good considering he's such a big guy, but that's always going to be something that is on the back of your mind with such a kind of big, mauling, plodding type of right tackle like Darnell Wright. And for a couple reps now, we've got to see Will McDonald go against that. And that's just, to me, that's a really fun kind of clash of strengths and weaknesses, and it definitely favors a guy like Will McDonald. But Will McDonald dominated a couple reps against Darnell Wright, who again is a guy who's going to be probably a top 50 pick in this draft. He's going to be going against offensive tackles like Darnell Wright. Guys like Orlando Brown come to mind about this kind of player. And it's just good to see him translate his skills to get wins against an NFL caliber tackle. He had just a pure speed rush where he goes to the bend around the corner, gets home, and then on the next rep threatens that speed and spins to the inside and wins with some quickness. So I think you kind of know what you get with him. I don't think there's a ton of power in there. Maybe he can show a little bit of that on day 3. If he could land a bull rush and threaten speed to power, then we could really get interested in Will McDonald. But yeah, I mean, the speed finesse rush is totally there. And then, like I said, a lot of these guys just aren't standing out a ton. There's a lot of more bigger names with this edge group, but none of them, I think, have been dominant. Some of them have gotten locked up a little bit. So like Andre Carter, we praised him yesterday. Day 2 was not as good for him. He tried to land a bull rush, and he just didn't get any push there. It's something to worry about there. He is very slender. He's got a very narrow stance. And, he's 6'6", 250. So, that's going to be an element to his game that if he's ever going to be a good starter in the NFL, I think adding a little bit more muscle to have some threat of power. Because he's powerful, I think, maybe in his core and certain parts, because when he's kind of throwing his hands around, doing cross chops and swipes and rips and stuff, you can see some baseline of strength. But again, tries to go to a true bull rush today and just nothing there at all. So a little bit disappointing to see that. But really with a lot of these guys, you got Foskey out of Notre Dame, Hall out of Auburn, KJ Henry out of Clemson, Byron Young out of Tennessee. I don't think they're playing horribly. They're NFL players, but none of them have truly flashed like an it factor about them. I don't think any of those guys have really helped their stock this week. If anything, they've all kind of maintained their stock because there's expectations for those guys. If not, hurt their stock a little bit. Then you get to the interior defensive line, and a much better day from this group. Keanu Benton out of Wisconsin continues to stun with his pass rush ability. He has now shown just a freaking laundry list of ways that he's going to be able to get after the quarterback. He, on day 1, won with a push and a pull move. He won with a swim move. And today, he's out there spinning on guys. He's got a little bit of power in there. I think Keanu Benton out of Wisconsin has earned himself a lot of money this week. Probably snuck himself into day 2 of the draft if he wasn't already there. Been very impressed with his all-around game and a good athlete as well with good size. So him and sticking in the Big Ten with another guy that's really impressed. I'm going to try not to butcher this name, but Adetomiwa Adebawore. I think I got that right. You guys can let me know in the comments how I did there. But really nice day for him, especially as a pass rusher. He's a little bit of a lighter guy, but he's putting that to his best use. He had 2 dominant wins, maybe the 2 most dominant pass rush wins of the day for both groups were from Adebawore. And they were both on cross chops, from one time against the right guard, one time against the left guard. And this is something we talked about with Devonta Wyatt. So a cross chop is where you are coming from the opposite side. You are going to take your far side arm and do a bit of a rip backwards instead of a rip forward. You're going to rip backwards to try and get the, it takes core strength, it takes arm strength, it takes quickness to get across the face of the lineman you're facing. So you rip them backwards. You're getting their arms out of the way, and you're creating a little bit of reverse momentum where you're pushing yourself further that way, away from your blocker, and you're pushing your blocker that way. So you're getting them off balance, you're taking their hands away, and you're separating yourself. And then you take your available hand here, and you're going to come through, and I guess you could call it a swim or just continue pushing. Basically, once you've got them where you need them to be, you push, and then it takes core strength and balance and quickness to continue accelerating through the rep. This is what Aaron Donald has perfected. It's almost the Aaron Donald move at this point, but it takes a certain type of athletic profile to do this. You have to be quick. You have to have get off. You have to have core strength and raw strength. You just don't see guys consistently pull this off. So to see him come out here twice in a row, dominate with that move, very similar to what we saw from Devontae Wyatt at the Senior Bowl last year. And Wyatt, likewise, is a lighter guy with really good athletic tools. That's a guy that ran like a 4.7 40, right? So definitely catching the attention of being a nice interior pass rusher there. I'll try his name one more time. Adetomiwa Adebawore out of Northwestern. And then one other guy that looked good was Zach Pickens, where I guess I'm not going to say he looked good, but I did see something there that I didn't see from him on tape, and that was a little bit more athletic juice than I thought he had. He didn't necessarily get wins out of his athleticism here, but just to see that it's there was nice, because I thought he was just kind of an average athlete, good straight line power and stuff, but he kind of got around a couple guys and showed some nice quickness and get off that I wasn't necessarily expecting from him. So maybe a little bit more of an unfinished product there with Zach Pickens, but just from an athletic profile, I know he's powerful, but just to see some quickness and added speed, bend, and get off there is just a little extra to work with. No really bad notes for the D-line. I will just say that D-line in general is very shallow. I didn't see a ton from Carl Brooks today. I know there's some hype for him. He may have done some stuff in some of the other drills that I didn't see. He had a big day day one. Not so much anything I noticed today. But there's definitely some players here that are day 3 guys, that are dime a dozen defensive tackles that I'm not stoked about. I guess, the Alabama guys, Dale and Young, the other Byron Young, really haven't done a whole lot. So I guess they could potentially be on the list of bad. It's just, interior defensive line, I've talked about this a lot. It's shallow. There's not a lot of great prospects at this position, and it's a hard position to win at. So let's talk about the offensive line as we wrap up here. We've got 3 players in my notes for the good section. One of them being DeJuan Jones, who did not play today. He shuts it down, killed it day 1, comes out, looks like a mammoth, plays like a mammoth. I think DeJuan Jones probably solidified himself as a first-round pick in this draft. Looked awesome day 1, and the fact that he shut that down, I think his agent got good news from the scouts here in Mobile. And then John Michael Schmitz, again, day 2 here, really dominating. If you need a center, if you need a starting center, you can take John Michael Schmitz wherever you need to do it, and he can play for you. I think he's got good athleticism to zone block, to wide zone block. He's got a wide frame. He's got enough power to, do drive blocks and hinge and seal off that nose tackle on power runs, trap runs. And for the second day in a row now, he has a dominant block down the field on a screen during team drill. And I love to see it. This time he had a pancake on the move. So just a really balanced, well-accomplished center that is going to be a day 1 starter. And whether that's something you take in the second round or the end of the first round, doesn't matter to me. Plug and play, day 1 center at this point. He might be a guy that shuts it down tomorrow as well. And then Osiris Torrance, I do want to apologize. I was misled by a tweet. I said on the day 1 show that he was struggling at tackle. That was actually his Florida teammate, Richard Gourage. And some tough names out here in Mobile. But Torrance was out there at guard today, and he was locked down. He's a guy that is one of the higher-rated linemen in this class, the number 1 guard in this class, big-bodied mauler out of Florida. Think like Gabe Jackson, for example. And he's rocked up. Once he gets his hands on you, you're not going anywhere, and we saw that today. These defensive tackles could not get through Osiris Torrance. So a really good day for him. A good player, a really good player that you would expect to play well out here, and that's exactly what he's doing. I will also note that the blocking in general for the American team were creating some huge lanes during team drill. Now, I would have to go back and really revisit those on the All-22 to see who was individually winning, but just as a unit, this group was creating some really explosive runs against this defensive line. I think it's quite the mismatch. And then, because like Adeba Ware, the Northwestern guy that we were praising on this team, because Benton's on the national team, but the Northwestern kid is kind of like, he's a lighter guy. I don't know if he's going to be a dominant run defender, but yeah, you get the point. As far as who's struggling on the offensive line, I will say Cody Mock was worse today than he was yesterday. He was really locked down in pass pro one-on-one yesterday, not so much today. So maybe a little bit of pump the brakes on Cody Mock. We flirted with kind of first-round conversation with him, so we'll take a step back on that. Not that he was horrible, but didn't steal the show today like he did yesterday. And then Ryan Hayes, the tackle out of Michigan, is really struggling out here. He's getting obliterated by power. He cannot protect his chest. He's just getting blown up and pushed backwards, put on his ass. It's been an ugly week in pass protection. He's had some good reps as a run blocker, which you would expect for a Michigan tackle, but in pass pro, he's raising some cause for concern there. So there's our show. Again, guys, check out the Fully Inflated Football podcast if you want my analysis. Please do hit that like button here on YouTube. Hopefully I was able to get this video all together. We'll see when I'm done. Fighting through the technical difficulties on the road here. I appreciate you guys for sticking it out with me. Let me know in the comments down below, who did you see, whether you're down here in Mobile or you're watching it on the telecast, who did you see that I maybe missed out on? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for the last Senior Bowl breakdown. Peace out.